Okay, it is 5 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call to order the council meeting of East Grand Forks City Council for Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. Would the city clerk please call roll?
Mayor Mark Olstead?
Here.
Council President Brian Larson?
Here.
Council Vice President Tim Riopel?
Here.
Council Members Tammy Schumacher?
Here.
Ben Pukshavinsky?
Here.
Dale Helms?
Here.
Donald Casey?
Here.
Karen Peterson?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll go into open forum. Open forum is an opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on items not on the current agenda. Items requiring council action may be deferred to staffs or boards and commissions for research in future council agendas if appropriate. If anybody's here for open forum, please rise. State your name and address, please.
Is this on?
Yep.
My name is Matt Hankslavin. My address is 65 Riverview Lane Southeast. Thank you for the opportunity to talk today. Okay. I'm a parent and a longtime youth coach in East Grand Forks and a deeply concerned member of this community. I'm here tonight to formally request that the city take action to remove John Wichik from his position with our Park and Recreation Department. For over a year, I've witnessed and documented a troubling pattern of bullying, retaliation, dishonesty, and mismanagement under John's leadership. These issues are professional failures that affect our youth and the families who trust this city to protect them. The past season as a volunteer assistant coach for the PWB1 team, John was the head coach. This season I was a volunteer assistant for the PWB1 team, John was the head coach. My son was bullied all season, especially in the locker room. Mostly by one player in particular. I reported this to John almost daily at times. Instead of addressing it, he ignored it, excused it, blamed my son, and protected the one doing the bullying. When I realized he wasn't going to do anything to stop it, I told him I wanted to take it up with Mark and Jeremy. He asked me not to and said he would talk to Jeremy himself. John got back to me and said he met with Jeremy, and Jeremy had some really good suggestions. Jeremy's suggestions were my son should back check harder, work harder in practice, and not talk about basketball in the locker room. When John told me this, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Park and Rec was blaming my son for being bullied. When I met with John and Jeremy on May 19th, I asked Jeremy if he in fact said these things, and he said no. John made up that statement and said it came from Jeremy, which was a complete lie. He lied to protect himself for how he was handling the situation. There were several times during the year where my son told me he was sick of the abuse he was taking in the locker room and that he just wanted to quit. John was aware of everything, and not only did he not address it, he tried to prevent me from dealing with it. I encourage you to read the document that I sent you for that further details this. John also tried to force our team of 11, 12, and 13-year-old kids to go to a pride event with him the night before our first state tournament game. He made this decision without consulting any parents and later tried to tell us that everyone on the team will be going to it. When I told him that my son wasn't going to go, he retaliated by telling me my children were no longer welcome to play in his summer hockey teams, and even went as far as deleting my post on our team messaging app where I let other parents know that I wasn't going to let my son go to it. John displayed a lot of unprofessional behavior throughout the season. Sometimes he would invite kids up to his hotel room to play Nintendo. The last night at our state tournament, he scheduled an hour and a half of whirly ball and laser tag for him and the kids to play from 9:30 to 11 at night, again, without consulting any parents. The kids didn't get back until almost midnight, and we lost the third place state game the next day 8-1 to a team that we should have beat. John volunteered to coach 10U baseball this summer, which normally is coached by parents. I told John and Jeremy that I didn't think it was appropriate for John to coach young kids after he tried to force my son's team to go to a pride event. John retaliated by removing me as a coach from my son's 12U team, even though I've been coaching at that level for 7 straight years. Since making my complaints public, I've had a lot of people reach out to me sharing their complaints with me regarding Park and Rec. The common denominator in all of them is John Wichik. People feel that many of our programs have been going downhill since he was hired due to changes that he has made and refusal to allow outside input. There is a huge concern within our community regarding our girls hockey program. The numbers are getting low and our teams are becoming less and less competitive as a whole, going back to the years when they won section championships. We have a number of girls leaving our program looking for success elsewhere or choosing to play in the boys program. I've heard from a lot of parents that have reached out to John wanting to meet and discuss the upcoming season and how they could improve the program. They are repeatedly told by John that parents have no say in how the program is run and all decisions are made by Park and Rec. However, when parents went to John wanting to plan a girls try hockey event and recruit young hockey players to join the program, John told them Park and Rec couldn't help them. The way they treat the girls program is a stark contrast to how they treat the boys program. The success of the boys program is directly related to parent involvement. The entire structure of the boys program has been shaped by parents working with Park and Rec. The parent that was mostly responsible for the changes that helped bring success to our program was given the title of Youth Hockey Coordinator. We have one of the most successful youth boys hockey programs in the state because of this. And imagine if our Park and Rec department would have told him that Park and Rec made all the decisions and didn't need his opinions. I'm not saying that our Park and Rec department should do everything that girls hockey parents suggest, but for them to repeatedly be told that their opinions don't matter and tell them that they don't want to have a meeting to discuss concerns is unacceptable, especially given the current state of the program. I've also heard that our figure skating club, from parents, has taken 5 steps back since John took over. They said there's a big difference in having someone to work with who wants to make the program better versus someone who's in the role for an ego boost. They also pointed out that our baseball program allows people from outside our community, which is outside of our county, kids that don't even go to school here, have been allowed to play, even though the figure skating community has been told several times they're not allowed to do this. I've also heard from people about how frustrating it is when parents complain to Park and Rec about a coach's conduct. There is a lack of accountability regarding the conduct. Park and Rec has a history of not wanting to handle or resolve concerns by parents and would rather just let things work themselves out. I've witnessed this firsthand way too many times. Parents complain about coaching conduct and are told that a coach won't be allowed to coach again, yet come next season, that same coach is coaching again and the same problems occur. Another complaint I have is how our Park and Rec department represents our youth teams at our district hockey tournament seeding meetings. Last year, my squirt team played only 3 district games prior to the district seeding meeting. We played 8 games against North Dakota teams, but only 3 against our district opponents. We won all 3 rather easily. John called me and told me that we got the 3 seed. Bemidji got the 2 seed, the other EGF team was the 1 seed. He told me that they try to avoid having 2 EGF teams as the number 1 and number 2 seed because they're worried about people complaining. I said, who's going to complain? The teams that we beat? We beat the next best team 7-2. They're not going to argue that they should be seated higher than us. His response was, well, you know, there's politics involved, and sometimes we have to ask for a favor at one level and give a favor at another level. This isn't fair to the kids, just to give the seeds away that they earned to another town. 2 years ago, my squirt team played 0 district games prior to the district seeding meeting. How do you seed a team that has played 0 district games? We were seeded 7th in districts, that's the lowest seed. They gave the other EGF team the 6th seed because they also didn't have many district games that they played. Our Park and Rec was okay with putting both EGF teams as the bottom 2 seeds, but they worry about what people think if they put EGF teams as the top 2 seeds, even when they've earned it. We played the number 1 seed Bemidji the first game and lost 6-5 after outplaying them most of the game. We beat Roseau 10-1. We beat our other EGF team in the last game. Not bad for the lowest seed in the tournament. We clearly shouldn't have been the lowest seed, but weren't given a chance to prove ourselves. 2 years ago, my oldest son's team was seeded number 1 after not losing a district game. There were 2 Bemidji teams that were on our level. Every game with them was close. Crookston was the number 4 seed, but both us and Bemidji beat them by about 10 goals. So it was basically between us and Bemidji. At the seeding meeting, Bemidji asked to move one of their teams down to the 4 seed so they wouldn't have to play each other in the semifinal game. We ended up losing to Bemidji in the semifinal game. The other Bemidji team beat Crookston, who we should have played, rather easily, and both Bemidji teams went on to regions. Our Park and Rec department allowing Bemidji to move down a seed cost our players their first trip to the regions. We had such an awesome year, and it was absolutely heartbreaking for our season to end like that. I can't say enough about the failures of our Park and Rec department, and the kids are the ones who suffer the consequences. We used to play our district opponents twice prior to the seeding meeting. Why did Park and Rec change this recently? Why are politics allowed to determine the outcomes of these meetings? The kids are the ones who work so hard to accomplish something, and our Park and Rec office just hands it over to another town. It should be decided on the ice, not behind closed doors. Why does our Park and Rec department seem to favor other towns over our teams? The reason I came in to talk to John and Jeremy on May 16th wasn't just to discuss the past hockey season. It was also to discuss because my 2 oldest sons quit playing baseball just a few weeks apart, and their reason for doing it really bothered me. My oldest son was on the high school JV team this year. His coach was Victor Cecito. Victor and I coached 10U baseball together 5 years ago. Park and Rec made Victor the head coach despite him only being 18 or 19 years old. From the first day, it was clear that Victor needed to have complete control of the team and was going to make all decisions himself. He clearly had no experience coaching young kids and made our players cry on a regular basis by talking down to them and manipulating them emotionally, and seemed to have no remorse about it. He would punish players for asking to play a position. This directly contradicts Park and Rec rules that states players are supposed to tell coaches where they want to play. He made my younger son break down and cry 6 games in a row by telling him that he was going to pitch in the game and then not letting him pitch. The more I tried to talk to Victor about things, the worse it got for my kids. Similar to how he punished kids for asking to play a position, he seemed to punish my kids whenever I tried to talk to him about the team. I talked to Park and Rec after the season and told him that I didn't want Victor coaching my kids ever again. When we found out that Victor would be my son's coach this year, I told him he would have to just work extra hard to get playing time, knowing how his last experience was playing for Victor. And Victor and John also are close friends, and I worried about Victor retaliating against my son for what went on between me and John during the hockey season. One of the first practices of the season, Victor made the kids practice outside when the temperature was in the 20s. The wind chill was in the single digits, and it was snowing pretty hard. One of the players suffered severe frostbite to the point where his ear and fingers swelled up and were painful for several weeks afterwards. It took my son about 20 minutes to get feeling back in his hands after I picked him up. I couldn't believe how an adult could put a kid in a situation where this could happen. The player that had frostbite decided that night he didn't want to come back and quit baseball. About a week before the first game, my son came home and said, "Dad, Victor really hates me." He explained that when handing out jerseys, when it was my son's turn in line, Victor came out, looked at him, picked the guy behind him, and then kept doing that until there was nobody left, and then told my son they were out of jerseys. He did the same thing the day before when he passed out helmets. I told him to just keep his head up and work hard. In the first 3 games of the season, my son was the only one on the team that didn't get into the game. Most of his teammates got to play 2 or 3 games. I watched how deflated he became during the 3rd game, watching his friends go in and out for a 2nd or 3rd time, realizing that he wasn't going to get to play. At no point did Victor make an attempt to have any communication with him about it. After the game, he got in my Suburban and said, "I just don't want to go back. I just want to be done." He didn't want to be around Victor and didn't know if he would ever get to play. I felt heartbroken for him after seeing him work hard, practicing for a month, just to see how things played out the way they did. A few weeks later, we got an email from Park and Rec regarding Babe Ruth summer baseball. My younger son was excited to finally get to play Babe Ruth baseball. We received an email saying this year they decided they were going to do things differently. They planned on having a 13U A team, a 15U A team, and a 14U B team, and we're going to have a tryout. In the past, players have always just played with their age and grade, and they never were listed as an A or a B team. I don't think that any Northwest Minnesota towns have A and B teams. There was no transparency, and no one knew which team their kid was trying out for. I didn't have a good feeling about this, knowing Victor's nephews are probably going to be on the A and B teams, and Victor would be selecting the teams, which meant that my son would probably be placed on the 14U B team. The fact that tryouts were only an hour and a half told me that the teams had already been selected. For comparison, our youth hockey program has 2-week-long tryouts. An actual baseball tryout should consist of players playing in about 5 or 6 scrimmages against each other to actually see them play baseball, along with some skill evaluation sessions. We were told there would be evaluators there, but when I dropped Brooks off, it was only John Wichik. When the tryout started, Victor walked up with a couple of kids that he knew that he found sitting in a car and asked if they would stick around and be evaluators. Park and Rec never actually had a plan for having evaluators there. Tryouts were a joke. Each player threw a handful of pitches, fielded a handful of balls, got timed running to first base, hit a few balls off a tee in a batting cage. I even heard a parent say that their kid wasn't even asked what their name was by the evaluator, so they had no idea who they were even watching. My son ended up on the 14U B team like we thought. The 13U team ended up just being the same 12 players who have been on a private traveling team for the last 6 years. This was all figured out ahead of time that this team was going to be the 13U A team. Victor took the 14U players that he wanted, put them on the 15U team, and the 14U team ended up being a mixture of 13, 14, and 15-year-olds. The schedule for the 14U team had only 14 games on it. 8 of them are against Grand Forks. When I asked John how many teams in Northwest Minnesota have a 14U B team, he said, "Honestly, I have no idea." I asked him, how could you move the 14U B team, the 14U team, to a B level without checking to even see if there were any teams to play? When I showed my son the team, he looked at them and said, "I don't even know if any of those kids are." He asked us if he could just quit. He said he just wanted to be on a team with his classmates. I also found out that my son wasn't the only kid to quit Babe Ruth baseball because of this. After having my second son quit baseball in just a couple of weeks, I was more than just hurt. I was really upset that these things were being allowed to happen. I couldn't help but feel that a lot of what was happening was done in retaliation to what happened during the hockey season between me and John. That's when I decided to go to Park and Rec and discuss this with John and Jeremy. I struggled to get straight answers from them. When I would catch John in a lie about hockey or baseball tryouts, Jeremy would cover for him. I ended up with more questions than answers and realized how little they did to actually make it look like an actual tryout. I asked them who picked the teams. John told me that the coaches picked the teams. However, John also told me that the coaches of the 13U team are two of the parents who have always coached the team. They weren't even at the tryouts. John told me one of the parents was the coach of the 14U team. That parent also wasn't at the tryouts, and he wasn't even told until 3 days after my meeting that he was the coach. He said that he went into Park and Rec a week earlier and volunteered to coach the team if needed. John told him that he put Victor in charge of selecting the coaches for the teams, and that he really trusts Victor and wanted to leave it up to him. Victor, as far as I know, isn't an employee of Park and Rec that I'm aware of, and I've had talks to John prior to this about Victor's conduct as a coach. I've heard from a lot of parents whose kid have either quit or elected not to play baseball because they didn't want to play for Victor. It shows a lack of leadership by John Wichik for letting him run our Babe Ruth baseball program. Another thing I would like to discuss is our hiring practices for our Park and Rec department. A person I know with 15 years experience working as a Park and Rec director applied for the open Park and Rec director position here after Reed took the city administrator position. He and his wife are from East Grand Forks and want to move their family back here. He wasn't even given an interview for the job with 15 years of experience at that position. Instead, the job was given to Jeremy King, who had no Park and Rec experience. I'm not saying that Jeremy can't do the job. I believe he can. I'm curious how a person with 15 years of experience at that position who is from our town is not even given an interview. Another person reached out to me who applied for the Park and Rec coordinator position when Mark Dragish left. This person has 15 plus years of experience in leadership, coaching, and teaching roles, and again, wasn't even offered an interview. Wasn't even given a phone call. Instead, the job was given to John with almost no experience. I can't think of a reasonable explanation as to why either of those two applicants weren't even given an interview, other than that the people in charge of hiring wanted to give the job to somebody already working within the city that they're friends with. I think that John Wichik is the wrong person for our Park and Rec coordinator and needs to be removed from that position. His conduct as a coach and city employee is not acceptable. There are serious concerns all throughout our youth sports that he is leading us in the wrong direction. What's happening here is more than just bad management. It's a failure of leadership and accountability. These programs are supposed to build confidence, character, and community for our kids. Instead, they're driving them away. I'm asking you tonight to do what Park and Rec leadership has refused to do, hold John Wichik accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hangsleben. Okay. Anybody else would like to approach the podium for open forum? Please state your name and address.
Name is Anna Dumas. My address is 47440 170th Street Northwest. I share a lot of the same concerns as Matt, and they've been outlined in the report he provided. My main concerns are with coach behavior. For years, a coach has been allowed to degrade and bully not only my child, but others as well. These concerns have been brought to Parks and Rec's attention numerous times. This past season, when I shared my concerns again, instead of taking a look at the coach's behavior, they chose to blame my 11-year-old daughter instead. After receiving the email, I reached out to her actual head coach and to apologize if JoJo had been the issue. Like Parks and Rec had stated, all coaches said she was. Her head coach told me that he had no issues with her at all, and to the contrary, he valued her hard work and dedication. The coach in question had told another coach on the ice my child was a waste of space. The very next week, after he had supposedly been spoken to about his behavior, he called her a moron. This type of bullying has been going on for 5+ years since she was in HU, and it's not only my child he does this to. Why is this bullying allowed to happen, and why is Parks and Rec blaming a child instead of holding an adult accountable? I have a little girl who loves hockey, who doesn't even know if she wants to play again because of this coach.
Thank you, Ms. Dumas. Any other attendees like to speak during open forum? Please state your name and address, sir.
My name is Parker Carlson. I live at 204 9th Street Northeast in East Grand Forks here. My family and I decided that we were going to move to East Grand Forks 2.5 years ago because of the sports programs. And I can say honestly that we're disappointed in conduct of coaches, the way they handle other players. Just, you know, we have 3 kids. They're all in different programs, hockey being one of them, and we've noticed it. In Bemidji this year, we had a coach have to leave the bench because of a fight with another coach. So our kids got to witness their coach's fight. Like, what do we, you know, it doesn't make any sense for these kids to have to go through this. So I don't know if it needs to be stricter suspensions or look into coaches more, but I feel like the Parks and Rec needs to do more with that, because obviously a 2-game suspension wasn't enough for something like that. So that was all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Okay. Any other people like to speak during open forum? Okay, I see none. All right, with that, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. We'll be seeking the approval of minutes.
I have a comment I'd like to make on this. I read this whole story that Mr. Hank Slavin had sent to all of us, and I hope the rest of you did too. And I have to sit here and say honestly that if one quarter of this stuff in here is true, it's way too much, and I'd almost believe it's higher than that. I'm just using that. I think it's something that we need to look at. We need to check into this. We maybe even need to do an investigation. If we do an investigation, I recommend we use an outside firm to do that. Because if we use internal people, we're going to get the same results. So that's my opinion on it. I think there is an issue going on here, and I honestly think that we need to look into it, because our Parks and Rec, frankly, we don't need to operate that way. I mean, that's why, as this gentleman just said, he moved here because he's wanted his kids in Parks and Rec. And then this happens. So I think this is something that we should not take lightly. And whether we put it on the work session for the next work session or something, we need to definitely figure out and do something about this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Helms.
Okay.
Okay. Let's work through our agenda here. Approval of minutes for the May 20th council meeting, May 27th work session, and May 27th special meeting. Moved by Helms. Is there a second? Second by Riepel. Any questions or discussion on the minutes? Roll call, please.
Larson?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Schumacher?
Yes.
Pakshavinsky?
Yes.
Riepel?
Yes.
Helms?
Yes.
Kazmi?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Scheduled bid lettings, there are none. Scheduled public hearings, there are none. Consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda will be adopted with one motion. However, council members may request individual items to be pulled from the consent agenda for discussion and action if they choose. Would a council member like to have an item pulled?
Yes.
Which item?
Number 5, please.
Okay, we'll pull item number 5. So with item 5 pulled, we would be looking for a motion for consent agenda with item number 4.
Move.
Moved by Riepel,
Second.
second by Peterson. Any questions or discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Larson?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Schumacher?
Yes.
Pakshavinsky?
Yes.
Riepel?
Yes.
Helms?
Yes.
Kazmi?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Item number 5, consider authorizing staff to make amendments to the Midco franchise agreement by removing the schools and continuing to receive the in-kind services for city buildings that would be deducted from the franchise fee. Is there a motion? Moved by Helms,
Second.
second by Peterson. Any questions or discussion? Ms. Peterson?
Can we just have clarification on to just exactly what the cable service is used for and the cost of it, please?
Absolutely. Councilmember Peterson and members, the proposed cable services moving forward as keeping it in the franchise agreement as an in-kind service would primarily be at the fire stations and at the police department. We would, Jeremy was doing some work and looking into whether or not there was a continued desire to have it at the Civic Center. That would be an option for us to consider, even at a staff level. Ultimately, if the council wanted to make that motion to amend or preclude specifically which buildings we had it as part of in-kind service, that'd be an option. But those are the three that we were ideally looking at: is the fire station, the police department, and the Civic Center. The fire department and the police department, remind and recall that those are 24-hour emergency operation centers that we have employees working either as living quarters or staffed there on 24-hour rotations. In the case of the fire department, they have living quarters there, and there's television sets in those living quarters in each of their rooms as they work their shifts. So there's a lot more cable boxes, physical cable boxes at the fire station, in the sense that there's one in all of the living quarters, as well as at the dispatch desk in the main work areas, for the purpose of being able to keep an eye on local news in the event of emergency, right? And we use that as a resource for our officers to be able to stay tied in an emergency weather type situation. The police department, largely the same. It would just be at one desk, at the dispatch desk at our main police department office. So even in the proposed cost of service that was in the council packet, I think in the police department case, it talked about as many as 6 digital adapters. That's based off the information that was provided to us from Midco when we had the agreement originally signed 10 years ago, and when it was free to us, right? So it didn't matter how many adapters they gave us because we weren't paying anything for it. So recognize that now if we continue on in this method and we have cable service, it would be 1 adapter, and that fee would be dropped. The standard rate for 1 cable box with fees and additional fees is roughly $110, $115 a month. By keeping it in the in-kind services as it's proposed in the motion, we are subject to a 30% discount from that market rate. That's the advertised market rate is what's included in the packet. That fee would be reduced by 30% before they withhold it from our franchise fee collection. That is ordered by the FCC. In the FCC order that requires this to have a charge, they do require a 30% discount off the market rate of the cable. I hope I explained it all and answered all the questions there. If there's more, please.
No, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion on item 5? Mr. Helms.
Yeah, thank you. Reed, could you maybe inform the people that this franchise, we actually make money off of it and it doesn't cost the city?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a big misrepresentation there to the people, because I've had some phone calls and I didn't know that until I come and talk to you personally.
Yeah.
So
yeah, great.
would, please.
Councilmember Helms and members, yeah, the franchise revenue on an annual basis, the collection is in 2024, it was about $108,000. That was the total annual collection. That's based on the rate is set at 5% of the gross earnings of Midco's cable television services. So if you only subscribe to internet from Midco in your home, you're not paying that franchise fee that's returned back to the city. It's just for those that receive cable television service. There you'd see when you pay your bill at your home, you'd see a franchise fee line. That's collected by Midco and redirected back to the city as the fee we've established to allow Midco the opportunity to have their cable lines within our right-of-way, to maintain the right-of-way on their behalf, and ultimately to be able to transmit cable in the community.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, I see none. Roll call, please.
Larson?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Schumacher?
Yes.
Pakshavinsky?
Yes.
Riepel?
Yes.
Helms?
Yes.
Kazney?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Moving down, let's acknowledge receipt of reports of officers, boards, and commissions. We have the regular meeting minutes of the Water, Light, Power, and Building Commission for May 7th, 2025. Communications, there are none. Old business, there is none. Moving into new business, item number 7, consider approving Ordinance 45, 4th Series, amending City Code Chapter 98 by adding Section 98.60 concerning illegal camping within the East Grand Forks city limits and adopting by reference City Code Chapter 10 and Section 10.99, which, among other things, contain penalty provisions. First reading.
Move.
Moved by Riepel.
Second.
Second by Casmi. Any questions or discussion? Good. Roll call, please.
Larson?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Schumacher?
Yes.
Pakshavinsky?
Yes.
Riepel?
Yes.
Helms?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. Got another long one here, Dale, so you got some time. Item number 8, consider approving Ordinance 46, 4th Series, amending City Code Chapter 90 by adding Section 90.20 through 90.28 concerning public conduct in parks within the City of East Grand Forks city limits and by adopting by reference City Code Chapter 10 and Section 10.99, which, among other things, contain penalty provisions. First reading.
Move.
Moved by Casmi.
Second.
Second by Pakshavinsky. Any questions or discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Larson?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Schumacher?
Yes.
Pakshavinsky?
Yes.
Riepel?
Yes.
Helms?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Item number 9, consider adopting resolution number 25-06-44, formally requesting $5,521,906.05 to be included in the 2026 bonding bill for the East Grand Forks Industrial Park Street and Utility Reconstruction Project.
Move.
Moved by Helms.
Second.
Second by Riepel. Any questions or discussion? Okay, I see none. Roll call, please.
Larson?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Schumacher?
Yes.
Pakshavinsky?
Yes.
Riepel?
Yes.
Helms?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Moving on to claims. Item number 10, consider adopting resolution number 25-05-45, authorizing the City of East Grand Forks to approve purchases from Border States Trophy, the goods referenced in check number 44465 for a total of $18, whereas Councilmember Riepel is personally interested financially in the contract.
Move.
Moved by Casmi.
Second.
Second by Peterson. Any questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Larson?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Schumacher?
Yes.
Pakshavinsky?
Yes.
Riepel? Helms?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Motion passes. Consider authorizing the city administrator, clerk treasurer to issue payment of recommended bills and payroll.
Move.
Moved by Casmi.
Second.
Second by Peterson. Any questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Larson?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Schumacher?
Yes.
Pakshavinsky?
Yes.
Riepel?
Yes.
Helms?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to council staff reports. Mayor Olsted.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first thing I want to talk about is the city pool opens up June 5th at 1 o'clock, so season's on our way. So hopefully everybody can enjoy the city pool, and hopefully we have nice warm weather all summer, so hopefully that's a big hit. Also, reminder that the Cats Incredible 38th Annual is on July 25th and 26th, so make sure you get out and sign up for that if you want to be part of that. Also, I think I'd like to address the open forum. I think I would appreciate that if our city administrator, Reed Hutton, and Jeremy King would get together and would discuss what the best foot forward is for this. I think bringing it back to council at some time to discuss that is probably the best way to go. I think that all of us here probably would like to see how we can proceed, how we need to look at it, and go from there. I don't envision that it's going to be an easy task to take on or discuss, but I think it's well deserved. But I would appreciate that if you would take the lead on it and work with Jeremy. So, and that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Schumacher.
Thank you. I also would like to address the open forum concerns and questions. You know, my attitude is we can't fix it if we don't know. And so now there's some things that have been brought to our attention. How you personally feel about it doesn't really matter, in my opinion. We have a responsibility to look into it, like Dale said. Like I read, and I've had a meeting with Reed and Jeremy about some coach evaluation systems. Matt is in my ward, so he reached out to me, and we've had a meeting. But we have a responsibility now. It's been brought forward, and we need to look into it. How you feel about it personally doesn't really matter. But hearing the concerns, it bothers me. And so I would like to see something moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pukshevinsky.
Nothing much to add. I agree with the previous comments that it's definitely something we need to look into, and I look forward to the findings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Riopel.
I have a lot on my mind about the open forum, but I'm going to spare everybody my thoughts at this point in time. Having been a Babe Ruth baseball director for 3 years in Grand Forks, Blue Line Club president for 10, and coach for probably another 10 years, I could say a lot about what I read. There's a lot between the lines that's not there, that we're going to have. It's going to come out eventually, and it's there's certain points where there's limits crossed by both maybe the coaches, but I think parental interference sometimes is another problem. 70% of those kids that quit at age 13 and 14 are due to the parents. So let's keep that in mind too. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Helms.
Thank you. I'm just going to put a plug in for the Heritage Foundation. It's our 50th anniversary this year. Going to be August 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th with a parade on the 7th on a Thursday night. If anybody would like to get a float or anything into the parade, more than welcome to have you. We'd like to make it a huge celebration this year. So that's it.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilmember Kasemy.
Nothing other than just looking forward to working on this open forum situation and coming to a conclusion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilmember Peterson.
I'll just comment real quick on the open forum also, just in regards to that there are definitely two sides to every story, and I would like to hear both sides so that we are able to make an informed decision.
Thank you. Mr. Hutton.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Appreciate everyone's comments and thoughts on the open forum, and certainly the venue we have in which people can come to voice their concerns, I think, is an important one. So I will say that internally through my office, I've started gathering facts and information. I had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Hankslaven and Tammy a week ago today. And with that meeting, at least at that point, was able to start putting some of the information together and understanding, trying to do our best to understand both sides of the situation. And we'll certainly continue to do that work and bring a report back to council when the time is appropriate and have it all gathered. I will say that I won't promise something is going to be on the work session next week. There's a lot of information brought forward, as you know, as you've read it. And it is going to take some time to kind of bring this all together in a concise report, but we'll continue to work on that, and we'll work with Mr. Galstead where necessary to have him help kind of put the professionalism to it as well. On the Midco matter that was on the agenda tonight, just kind of matter of process on that now. Appreciate the vote. Really what that does now is authorizes me at a staff level to go back to Midco with the direction the council has suggested on how to handle the in-kind service. And ultimately, will the Midco franchise agreement as a whole is due for renewal this year. The current one expires in December of 25. So this will be one of the pieces that we would bring forward as an amendment or a renewal of the contract. The rest of the agreement is in staff hands right now reviewing. I don't anticipate any other major changes to it, but this would be one item that we'd speak to on that, and that kind of helps give us direction to take back to Midco for the change or the renewal of that piece. And then the last one, Jason, if I can put you on the spot, I know a number of you have as well been getting comments on the green site, and there's been some changes to the bins that are in place at the green site. I appreciate Jason and his staff, all the work they've been doing to try to address those, but maybe Jason, if you want to touch a little bit on the change in bins from last year to this year and the work we're trying to do to make improvements there.
Thank you, Reed. So the green site, we got some different bins at the green site. We're now, instead of countrywide pulling them, we're pulling with our staff and our hook truck. They work out pretty good. The ones that we had built are the same design as the city of Grand Forks, same heights and everything. They have a fold down type step for people that can't lift the containers over the side. Reed had some people reach out to him, some residents, saying that it was too hard, too difficult for them to get to dump their containers. So we put back in a couple. The way it currently sits now, we put back in a couple walkways back in, and we put the containers around that. The only issue we ran into is these containers are a little bit wider than the other 20-yard containers, so they don't fit in there like they would before. So right now there's 4 containers, and there's 2 walkways for the 4 containers. So people can access either from the walkway in the middle or the step on the outside of the other side of them right now. So it seems to be working okay. We put a dumpster. We will be moving one of the dumpsters in between the 4. There's like 2 and 2, and we'll put the other dumpster right in the middle for people with their bags and whatnot for right now, and then we'll just see how it plays out. But that's the situation. Did you want any more?
Yeah, no, that's good. And just kind of, again, to point out the impetus of the change is we're saving significant amount of money by hauling these bins ourselves that we own, or rather than having that part of the countrywide contract. So we didn't change it just because we wanted to make change. There's real reason there to back up why we decided to bring them under our own operation.
And we did model it off of Grand Forks somewhat. You know, they have bins for their branches, they have bins for their grass. It seems like it works out pretty well for the city of Grand Forks, so that's what we were hoping to do. We still are hoping to do that, but we just made a few changes, I guess, to make it possible. So,
Thank you. Okay, anything else, Mr. Hutton?
That's all, thank you.
All right, Mr. Gallstead.
Not a whole lot. I'm just going to echo Mr. Hutton in that I'm willing and able to assist in any type of an investigation. I just want to remind everybody that this would be an HR issue, and it's not necessarily just open. There's a lot of different things that has to be followed, so we'll follow that procedure and get you some answers.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Emery.
Good evening. I think as everyone has seen, we've resumed work with the Quiet Zone project. A majority of the work that's being completed right now is by BNSF, replacing kind of their gates, signal system, and the kind of the controls and everything that go along with that. We have a little bit of sidewalk work to finish, pedestrian gate to put in. Op construction is going to kind of refresh all the pavement markings and stuff. I did have a meeting last Thursday with a representative from Federal Railroad, kind of walked the project, got a report. She thought everything looked good, which is positive. And so I asked her, I said, what do we need to do next for this horns to quit blowing? And basically said, we filed our notice of establishment requesting that on June 20th, the train horns quit blowing. So she said at 12:01 a.m. on June 20th, the train horn should cease to blow. So, and Nancy has offered to be out there to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Great news. Any updates from the department heads? Mr. King.
Thank you, Council President and City Council. I just also wanted to address some of the comments in the open forum and just let everybody know that when this whole process started, that we had an outreach to our office from a lot of different residents, participants in our program who really like the direction that our Parks and Rec Department is going and really enjoy what John has been doing there. So I know that there was a lot of pointed and tough messages heard here today, but I just want everyone to know that there are two sides to the story, and we've heard a large outcry, and just wanted to let you all know that from a department head perspective, John has been doing a great job, and we enjoy and like the changes that he's bringing to the department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. With that, I would be ready for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Helms. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Riopel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting is closed. Thank you, everyone. Dale is ready to go.